Hi, let's look at the 5 reasons for Iraq War. We may be different, but we all have Father, and we all have a very special place in our heart for our parents. We all have to ask one simple question. If the father we love and respect was humiliated the way senior President Bush was by dictator Saddam, what would the most powerful person on this planet Earth, who also happened to be his son, would do? The humiliation and power to teach a lesson to SOB Saddam Hussein became a very intoxicating combination that was uncontrollable by junior President Bush. So here are the 5 reasons for Iraq War. Reason number 1, the uncontrollable anger due to humiliating defeat of senior President Bush and arrogant, taunting behavior of Saddam Hussein by firing his gun in the air. It was like telling senior President Bush, hey, I still am the president and have palace and power, but you got kicked out of the White House. Please watch this. Reason number 2, Vice President Cheney was under pressure to deliver to the oil companies and campaign contributor their share for putting junior President Bush in the White House. Please look at this.
A year ago, Paul O'Neill was fired from his job as George Bush's Treasury Secretary for disagreeing too many times with the president's policy on tax cuts. Tonight, O'Neill, who is known for speaking his mind, talks for the first time about his 2 years inside the Bush administration. His story is a centerpiece of a new book being published this week about the way the Bush White House is run. Entitled The Price of Loyalty, the book, by a former Wall Street Journal reporter, draws on interviews with high-level officials who gave the author their personal accounts of meetings with the president, their notes and documents. But the main source of the book was Paul O'Neill. Paul O'Neill says he's going public because he thinks the Bush administration has been too secretive about how decisions have been made.
Contrary to how we practice politics today in this country, there is some market for the truth.
You interviewed how many other people?
No, hundreds of people.
Hundreds
of people.
How many other cabinet members?
Several. Let's just say several.
But O'Neill is the only one who spoke on the record.
At the very beginning, there was a conviction that Saddam Hussein was a bad person and that he needed to go.
He says that going after Saddam Hussein was topic A 10 days after the inauguration, 8 months before September 11th.
From the very first instance, it was about Iraq. It was about what we can do to change this regime.
Now, everybody else thought that grew out of 9/11.
No.
But this book says it was day 1 of this administration.
Day 1, these things were laid and sealed.
As Treasury Secretary, O'Neill was a permanent member of the National Security Council. He says in the book he was surprised at the meeting that questions such as why Saddam and why now were never asked. It's all about finding a way to do it. That was the tone of it. The president saying, go find me a way to do this.
For me, the notion of preemption, that the U.S. has the unilateral right to do whatever we decide to do, is a really huge leap.
And that came up at this first meeting.
To do.
O'Neill told us the discussion of Iraq continued at the next National Security Council meeting 2 days later. He got briefing materials under this cover sheet.
There are memos. One of them, marked secret, says, plan for post-Saddam Iraq.
Nation building.
Absolutely.
So they discussed an occupation of Iraq
in January and February of 2001.
Based on his interviews with O'Neill and several other officials at the meetings, Susskind writes that the planning envisioned peacekeeping troops, war crimes tribunals, and even divvying up Iraq's oil wealth. Susskind obtained this Pentagon document dated March 5, 2001, entitled Foreign Suitors for Iraqi Oil Field Contracts. It includes a map of potential areas for exploration.
It talks about contractors around the world from, 30, 40 countries, and which ones have what intentions or
On oil
in Iraq.
Reason number 3. The intelligence agency were careless, if not inefficient, as they knew the intent of the administration from get-go. They failed on the quality of intelligence and were scared to tell the truth to the power.
If you really want to know the truth about the state of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction before the invasion, listen to Colin Powell in February 2001. He states clearly that there was no threat from Saddam Hussein.
He has not developed any significant capability with respect to weapons of mass destruction. He is unable to project conventional power against his neighbors.
And this is Condoleezza Rice, Bush's national security advisor, in July of the same year, saying the same thing, putting the lie to their own propaganda.
We are able to keep on from him. His military forces have not been rebuilt.
And that, many believe, was the truth, a truth that was covered up and conveniently forgotten after September the 11th, when Bush and Blair decided to attack Iraq.
Reason number 4. Saddam was, in few words, stupid, arrogant, cruel dictator who underestimated the resolve of US and overestimated the power of his army.
You, Madam Secretary, made 56 false statements to the American people where you repeatedly pump up the case that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and exaggerate the so-called relationship between Iraq and Al-Qaeda. Madam Secretary, can you please tell us, isn't it true that you had intelligence that cast doubt on your repeated claims that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction?
And reason number 5. The US government, intelligence agency, majority of Congress, US think tank, and the US intelligentsia had strategic interest in making Middle East a stable place by removing this SOB Saddam Hussein. So they did not ask the tough question and look the other way. At the end, the cruel dictator SOB Saddam is gone. Maybe we paid too high cost for it. But let us celebrate rather than fight over it. Lesson well learned.
It's easy to be cynical and just say, you know what, it can't be done because Washington's designed to resist change. But in fact, there have been periods of time in our history where a president inspired the American people to do better.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
Lesson well learned, and thanks to Junior President Bush for being a wonderful son. Thank you.
And I think we're in one of those moments right now. I think the American people are hungry for something different and can be mobilized around big changes, not incremental changes, not small changes.
And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.